All right, folks, it's Back in Action here. On this video, we are going to take a look at how we can apply the rational root theorem along with the intermediate value theorem to help us solve a polynomial without any hints at all. So how we're going to put all of these ideas together. So let's just jump into an example here at the top. And the first thing that we are asked to do on this example here at the top is to list all the possible rational zeros. And the key here is that it's the possible rational zeros. It doesn't mean that these values will end up being a zero. It just means that if there's a rational zero, it will be something from this list. So we're going to look, remember, at the leading coefficient and at the constant. We don't care about anything that's in the middle there. And we're going to list the factors of the leading coefficient. So those would be a 1, 2, 4, and 8. And we're going to list the factors of 35. So we've got a 1, 5, 7, and 35. So now when we start to list those possible rational zeros, we initially have to just grab all of the factors of the constant, and we're going to list those. And remember, it's a plus or minus. You'll see in our solution keys that we're going to list that plus or minus next to every single one, but for your purposes, you can list it in the front. So I'm going to have this plus or minus 1, 5, 7, and 35. And then from there, I'm going to start writing them all over the factors of the leading coefficient. So I'm going to take my 1 and I'm going to say 1/2 and 1/4 and 1/8, and I'm just going to start listing those. So there's my 1/2, my 1/4, and my 1/8. From there, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to do my 5/2, my 5/4, and my 5/8. Keep going. I'm going to do my 7/2, my 7/4, and my 7/8. And then lastly, I'll have my 35, and I'm going to actually list those up above, and I'm going to say 35 halves, 35 fourths, and 35 eighths. So this is certainly a really messy list, and it's certainly very, very long, okay? But remember, what we're thinking about is that without any other hints, our options of possible zeros to try is the entire set of rational numbers, that infinitely sized large bucket of rational numbers. And we've taken what used to be an infinite sized set and we've narrowed it down to this list. So when you think of infinity compared to this list, it's not looking actually too bad. Now, once we have those rational zeros, we can start thinking about how to apply the intermediate value theorem so we don't have to just guess and check. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our numbers on the number line. So we're actually going to place them onto the number line. And I'm not going to list all of them. I'm just going to list, truthfully, some of them. So I've certainly got some whole numbers there, but then I'm going to find these ones that are between 0 and 1. So all of my fractions that are less than 1. So that would mean that I would have this 1/2 and a 1/4 and a 1/8. Those would all be less than 1. And then I also have a 5/8 over here, and I have a 7/8 here. So all those values would fall between 0 and 1. I have this 1/2, oops. I have my 1/2 that I can put here. I have a 1/4. I have a 1/8. I have my 5/8. And I have my 7/8. So those are all rational zeros that fall between 0 and 1. Then I can go ahead and I can grab the ones that fall between a 1 and a 2. And if I put those on my number line, I get a 5/4. And I have a 7/4. And then I can find the ones that fall between 2 and 3, and I have 5/2. And I'm going to just stop right there for now, narrowing those down, although I suppose I could throw on this 7/2 if I wanted there, okay? Certainly we could extend our number line and we could include these values way out here, but for right now, let's look where the bulk of these are clustered, remembering that we could take this entire number line and we could mirror it over here on the negative side as well. Now, here's where the intermediate value theorem is helpful for us. If we take these integer values and we're going to just start evaluating our function, okay, for each of these nice integer values. So if we evaluate our function at 0, that one of course is easy because that's just going to give us our y-intercept. We know that f of 0 is 35, and that's a nice positive number, okay? Now, if I plug in a 1, if I substitute and find p of 1, if you want to pause the video and check that, what you'll find is that p of 1 is also a positive number. So what that means is that from 0 to 1, none of these zeros will apply for us because our graph does not cross the x-axis between 0 and 1. It stays above the x-axis the whole time. So I don't even need, when I go to start working on my synthetic, I don't even need to test any of those numbers. I know those will not work. Now I can keep going and I can check at, let's say, f of 2. So if I check f of 2, I also get a positive number. And again, you can pause the video and actually type it in and check it for yourself. So again, my graph is still above the x-axis this whole space from 0 to 2. And again, I could come back here and check more, but at least from here to here, I know I'm still above. Then when I check at 3, if I evaluate at p of 3, what I'm going to find is I get a negative value. Now, that's important to me because if I have that negative value, that's significant because that means that somewhere between 2 and 3, it's going to cross the x-axis. And what I notice is that I only have one possible rational 0 between 2 and 3. So that immediately narrows down my options for starting my synthetic division. So that's where I'm going to start. So when I set up my synthetic division, again, I'm going to write those coefficients. We've been doing this for a while now. So I'll have my 8, I'll have my negative 44, I'll have my 46, and a 35. And when I set this up, I'm going to start with that 5 halves because I do know that my graph is supposed to cross there. So if it's a rational number, it should be 5 halves. It's my only choice. So I've got my 0, 8, 5 halves times my 8. Again, if you need to pause, you can. That's going to give me a 20. I'm going to add straight down. That gives me a 24. 5 halves times my negative 24 gives me a negative 60. Adding straight down gives me a 14. Multiplying there gives me a 35. And sure enough, there's my rational 0, which means I now have this nice polynomial that I can work with. I can take this reduced polynomial, this 8x squared minus 24x minus my 14, I can set that equal to 0. It's conveniently all divisible by 2, so I can reduce it even more. 4x squared minus my 12x minus my 7 equals 0. It's actually going to factor for me, so I can factor this. So I have my 2x and my 2x. So if I'm just going by guess and check, that's an easier way to lean. I'm trying to get a 7, so I'm going to put a 7 in one of these. So that's going to give me a negative 7 and a positive 1. So now I can quickly read those zeros. So I'm going to have an x is a negative 1/2, and I'm going to have an x is a 7 halves. So now what I can do is I can start putting all these zeros on my graph. So I'm going to have my negative 1/2. I'm going to have my positive 5 halves. I'm going to have my positive 7 halves. Of course, I have my y-intercept of a 35. Looking at my end behavior, I know that from here it needs to go down and here it needs to go up. So I can just connect those dots. And remember, we're not worrying about how high or low. We'll let your calculus classes handle that. Okay, so let's look at one more example. Again, this video is a little bit longer than other ones, but there's a lot of stuff that we've got going on here. So again, let's look at, we've got our coefficients, our leading coefficient and our constant. So our factors of 3, of course, are just 1 and 3, and our factors of 6 are going to be 1, 2, 3, and 6. Writing those out, I'll have my plus or minus of course, all the factors of the constant. And then writing those out as fractions, putting those over my 3, I'll end up with a 1/3 and a 2/3. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put those on my number line here. So putting those on my number line, I've got my 1/3 and my 2/3 are both going to fall between 0 and 1. And again, just so you can see how we could do this, we could also write those on here. When I don't have quite as many, I do sometimes go ahead and write those on. Then I'm going to start checking for sign changes. And again, I like to just check on the positive side first. So if I do P, this function we're calling P, so if I do P of 0, looking at my constant there, I see that I have a negative. If I find P of 1, again, you can pause it and check it. That's going to give me a negative number. So I still don't have a sign change, so this graph is below the x-axis here. I'm just going to keep going, see if I can find a sign change somewhere. I'm going to check that 2 real quick, and sure enough, if I actually calculate f of 2, what I find is that actually equals 0. So this one is a 0. So instead of getting a sign change between two integers, I actually got a sign change right at an integer, which means I can just do my synthetic with that value, and that will sometimes happen for us. So I'm going to set up this synthetic. I've got my 3, my negative 17, my 1, and my negative 6. Quick, do that synthetic division. Just quickly working through that. That's exactly what we wanted. And now we can grab that polynomial and we can factor that. So I'm going to have my 3x cubed and my 9x squared plus my x plus my 3. This is going to factor by grouping. Remember, when we factor this by grouping and it's a 1, we always need to write that 1. So I have my 3x squared plus my 1 and my x plus 3. So if I bring that up here, of course I have an x equals a negative 3, and then I have a 3x squared equals a negative 1. X squared is a negative 1/3. When I take the square root of all of this, I am going to need to remember to rationalize and work with my imaginary. So I have that I over a radical 3 with my plus or minus. Cleaning all that up, I get a radical 3 over 3. So now, if I want to do a very quick graph of this, I can rough in this graph. I'm going to draw on an XY axis here. If I want to put my values on my number line, my real numbers will go on my number line. I'll have my negative 3. Oops, I don't know why that did that. And I'll have my 2 and my x-axis or my y-axis of a negative 6. So it's a 4th degree with a positive leading coefficient, so I know those are up. And then when I connect this, we talked about this in class, when you draw this in, if you want to do an extra little turn, you certainly can. But you don't have to do this extra little turn in there. If you wanted to even make it look just like a really flat parabola, that would also be perfectly fine. Okay, so that's all that we have. That's how we're going to bring together the rational root theorem and the intermediate value theorem with solving our polynomials.